Well, I think we got a good crew in here to start, so I will turn things over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So today I want to talk about how to get ready for maintenance and how to build a stronger team for maintenance. I remember when I was a service advisor, it was, hey, here's a bunch of techs, write up what they tell you to write up, sell what you can, and hope for the best, kind of. And I remember one lady came in one day with a Subaru and asked for a 60K, which is really rare that someone comes in asking for maintenance, right? And I'm like, great, we'll look it over, I'll call you, no big deal. So I call her and I recommend everything that we saw in the car, right? And it was nothing really out of the ordinary. It's a lot of fluids and filters and the usual stuff. And she just starts ripping me a new one and yelling at me and all this stuff. And I'm sure anybody who's been in this business before has experienced somebody verbally just yelling at them for no reason, right? It happens a lot. So after this, I mean, she's throwing papers. You guys are going to go to law. I'm going to get a lawyer. You're going to get sued. We're going to go to the newspapers, like all this shit. And I'm just thinking to myself, what did we do wrong? Did we actually do something wrong here? And the more I thought about it, we weren't prepared was really the issue, right? We had certain technicians that would write up every car for a power steering flush, and we had certain technicians that would never write one up, right? We had no rule for me to explain to the customer to say, hey, this is the inspection that we did, and this is why we're recommending it. So today, my goal is to really give you guys a lot of tools, excuse me, guys and girls, or everybody, give you some tools for your toolbox so that when this stuff comes up, you're able to deal with these issues and these conversations and have the information that you need to make a smart maintenance plan and understand the why. I'm also going to go over a lot of what we're seeing nowadays on the new vehicles, a lot of what's coming to you, and kind of what we can and cannot do about it. So feel free to take notes. If you want a copy of the recording, follow up with John. I'm going to send it to him, and then he'll be your guys' contact. There's going to be a few documents I'm going to go over also. Again, I will send it to John, and he can get all the information to you. So the first thing that I always thought was kind of funny is when I was a tech, we were at a gas station, like this nice 5 bay gas station. We were really popular in the area. We had a lot of customers that would get gas and get their car service with us. So they'd come by and they'd buy a new car and they'd ask us, hey, what oil should I use? Right. And my first thought is, this is what you're worried about after all the things that we've told you to do to your car that you didn't listen to us or you argued with us. You're going to come in and ask us which engine oil to use over the other, right? Because at this point, they're really trying to take care of this car, right? They're in that mindset because I just bought a new car. I want to take care of it better than the last one. We always say that. It doesn't always work out, right? But we always say it. The reason for this is an education time, right? Let me explain to you the difference in those oils and where you really should be spending your money and not spending your money, right? They're asking you for your guidance, and this is the time for you to guide them, okay? So I want to teach you a lot of the why today. With oil, all the oil that's sold in the United States has to meet an API standard, American Petroleum Institute. Started from the original Model Ts with SA and worked its way all the way up to SN plus and now SP, which is not on that chart. I need to get an updated version of it. What that is the oil engineers setting a standard that you have to meet to be able to sell the oil for those vehicles in a sense. So feel free to look it up on your car. Feel free to look at the oil at 7-Eleven and realize it's not meant for any car after 2004, right? But they're never going to tell you that because we don't know that stuff. Now, what I run into a lot of is, well, which one's better? Which one's better? The additive pack in almost all those oils that are going to be in SN, for example, are going to be very similar. When we test them, they're going to fail at a very similar rate because they're all rated to the same standard, right? How can it be 20 times stronger if it's all meeting the SN standard? Okay. So then, hey, Peyton, why would I spend more money on oil? What's the difference, right? So the difference is evaporation. If you have a fryer in a restaurant and it's cooking all day, it's going to lose oil, right? It's going to evaporate. Your car does the same thing. The American Petroleum Institute states that you can't lose more than 15% of the capacity over the life of the oil change. So if a dealer's telling you that that oil consumption is okay, they're lying to you because the API states that that oil is not supposed to be doing that. If you buy a Mobile One, you'll probably have about 12% evaporation. If you buy a BG premium engine oil, you'll probably have about 7% evaporation. The big difference now is that evaporation, that oil, that quart that you're losing is getting burned through the engine out the exhaust. So now it's making everything sticky and tacky, and oil deposits are everywhere because we're burning so much more oil than we used to. So what people always will ask is, well, then what oil should I use? Get a decent oil that meets your API. Don't waste your money on AMSOIL or Whirl Purple or a lot of those things because they're meeting the same standard. You'll notice the big difference in the two is the marketing. There's a lot more in the bottle and the label and what you see on TV and stuff like that. But get one that meets your standard and then use MOA, and you're not going to have any problems. Okay. If someone bought a new car, what does that look like? Right now, the average is about 13.1 years this year that someone keeps a registered vehicle. So I'm not talking about cars that are broken down and not insured and titled and all that. This is registered cars. So what that means is every time that we talk about interest rates going up or cars becoming more expensive, people keep the cars longer, which is what's happening right now. Okay. The average mileage is usually about 15,000 miles a year. If you live more of in a city, you're probably a little bit less. If you're going to be in an area where you drive an hour to Home Depot and an hour to Walmart all the time, you're going to be more like 30,000 miles a year, right? But if you do the math on that, you're looking at roughly 200,000 miles. Most customers say, I want to keep it till the wheels fall off. But what does that mean? Does that mean 100,000 miles? Does that mean 300,000 miles? Because for me, it's going to be a difference in what I'm going to recommend based on what they want out of that vehicle, right? I think we can all agree with that. So our job is to really do everything we can to keep costs low over the period of time that they want to keep that car, right? So the other day, I had someone ask me how much a new car is, and I haven't done the math in a long time. So we buy a 2024 Camry with the options that you would want. I was at a dealer, so I asked, and it was about $45,000 out the door. If you do the math with excellent credit and $1,000 down payment, that comes out to a $795 month payment. Okay, for a very long time. I think that that's for 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. So when you add up all the interest, that's almost $60,000 for that car. Okay. Now I want you to ask yourself this: if you paid $60,000 for a car, how many miles would you expect to get out of that engine before it has a catastrophic failure that you either have to replace it or you've got to get a new one, right? And this is becoming a big deal now because factory warranties are coming down. If we decide to do, let's say, a 10,000 mile oil change interval, we're probably not going to get to 100 or 150 without some kind of oil related issue, right? But remember, this car only has a 60,000 mile engine warranty on it. So with the warranties coming down, we have to really talk about what are we going to do with this car, because now we got to start maintaining it to get that 200,000 miles out of it. Now, one thing I always love is that customer that just comes in and does whatever I tell them to do. And they have a few questions because they want to know, and I get it, but they listen to you, right? And they ask questions, and it's like, look, what should I do? I want to get as many miles out of the thing as possible. The first thing most of us are going to tell them is go a 5,000 mile interval. A 10,000 mile interval is pretty insane these days, right? So if you were to go a 5,000 mile interval, I can comfortably tell you that you're probably going to get 200,000, maybe 500,000, depending on what kind of oil and additives you're using out of that engine. That's really the difference that you're talking about when what is it going to cost me to replace this car, right? So if somebody came in and said, hey, Peyton, let's just do everything. The car is brand new, but I want to do it for 500,000 miles. You know, I'm in. You sold me. But if we did that, what would that cost for me to plan that out? How much would I need a year? How much would I need over the life of the car? I just need to know a number, right? I need to understand this. Okay. So this is one of the sheets that I will pass to John. Let me go ahead and switch screens real quick. Okay. All right. John, can you see the Excel screen?
Yep, we're all set on that front.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sometimes this thing is a little funky. All right. So again, John will get you a copy of this to Drag to other screen to share. Okay, I don't know why that happened. So this is a thing that I've used a lot to help get yourself in mindset and your team in a mindset of building a maintenance plan. Every time you go into a shop and you try to build a maintenance plan, there's always that one guy that doesn't believe in doing one of the services, right? And my argument is always, hey, look, when that transmission has 120,000 miles on it, are you going to touch it? No, 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 nope, not going to do it. Nope, 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 right? Then we need to be doing a really good job of making sure it gets recommended before 100, or we're doing the customer a disservice because we're never offering it to them in the first place. And then now they have a ticking time bomb. So what is that mileage going to be? By 80,000, if it's never been done, we are automatically going to recommend it. Is it every 30? Is it every 60, right? This is the stuff that you guys have to decide on what you want to do, because if you don't believe in it, it's really hard for your customers to believe in it, okay? So let me just move this one thing real quick and we'll dive into this. Again, I'm going to send you guys a copy of this because I know you guys are going to ask because it's super cool. At the top, you can change the starting mileages, your intervals, and how many intervals per year. On the left side, you have the mileages, okay, up to 150. So we're going to plan this up to 150 and past, not just to end at 150, okay? So the customer says, hey, Peyton, I want the best oil change. So let's say that we do a BG MOA EPR 44K oil change, right? It's probably going to be about $200. So what you're going to do in this sheet is you're going to put an X every time that you want to have this calculated, okay? Now, some of the math that I'm going to show you in a minute, a couple things that are usually excluded: brakes, tires, alignments, stuff like that is usually under the repair category, not under the maintenance category. I don't know why, but just FYI. So what else? The fuel service. BG is going to recommend it. Let's say it's 250. And if somebody thinks the price is too low, feel free to put it in the chat and I can change it, because I'd rather be high on this exercise than low. So you guys can see that I am putting an X every 3, which would calculate to every 15,000 miles. So it's going to calculate the math for us, okay? So then we're going to do trans. Oops, sorry. Okay, trans. We'll do, I always start with a Toyota Corolla, so we don't need to get too complicated with diffs and all this other crazy stuff. So trans, let's do brake. Can't type. Let's do coolant. Okay, and we're going to do filters. And then use the air in the cabin. We'll make this $200 for both. We'll do the brake, the coolant, let's say it's 250. Oh, 250. And let's say the brake is 189. And let's say the trans is 350. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put an X for the brakes, the trans, and the coolant that we're going to do every 30,000 miles, right? 60, 90, 120, and 150. Because again, we're not going to it, we're going to go past it. And then I'm just going to copy this fuel one that goes every 15 and put it the same place as the filters. So that way we can do the filters, air and cabin, at the same time every time, okay? Usually I'll work you guys through this exercise and we'll talk. And if you're going to do this to your staff, it's a good idea. Like, hey, what do you guys think it's going to cost, right? Let's add it up. So I'll go ahead and scroll the bottom and show you. So right now we're at about 15,000 miles over 150,000 mile period, or roughly $1,300 a year, okay? Now, there's a lot of stuff getting done here, right? We're doing a lot of services for that, which comes out roughly to 9 cents a mile. So if you do all the BG services with me on a Corolla, then it's going to come out to about 9 cents a mile. If it has four-wheel drive, it's usually about 11 or 12 cents a mile, depending on your labor rate and all that fun stuff, right? So one thing to think about is, how are you compared to everybody else? I know that we always want to be cheaper because it's easier to sell, at least it is in our mind, right? So there's a site right here at the bottom of this, Edmunds.com TCO, which stands for True Cost of Ownership. So let me switch screens one more time. Okay. When you go to this website, I will tell you it's a little bit harder to find than it used to be. I have a feeling they did it on purpose, but you put your zip code in and you can select the year, make, and model of a vehicle. Okay. It will only let you go 5 years back. And because they keep fighting every year to bring the numbers down, that you'll notice the newer the car, even if it's the same car with the same engine, it'll be like 500 or $1,000 cheaper in the oil changes so they can bring that cost down. Okay. So when you look this up, let me just a little bit, make sure you guys can see this. You'll see right here, there's a repair number and there's a maintenance number. A maintenance is 8191. Okay. Now, this is over a 5 year period, 15,000 miles times five, 75,000 miles total. So this is only calculating the first 75. Can you imagine what actually gets done as the bare minimum before 75, right? If, oh, it's lifetime fill and oh, we don't service that till 100, right? They're doing that to keep this number down. That's why this is happening. So 8191 over a 5 year period. Now, the cost per mile is going to be roughly the same because we're doing the same things over and over. So if we take 8191 and divide it by 75,000 miles, you get roughly 11 cents a mile. So this is basically the bare minimum that the dealership is recommending in the owner's manual, and it's more expensive than doing all the services that aren't in the owner's manual, right? I think a lot of times this is something good for us to see. So here's a Chevy, 2022. Maintenance cost is 64.17, which is going to be about 9 cents a mile, right? So a lot of us think that, these cars don't need maintenance. No, they do, and they're telling them right here that it does. They will break out some of the stuff to explain it to you, but usually brakes and tires and batteries and everything else, including wipers and air filters, are in maintenance. I don't know how they break it out that way, but that's what I usually read when I read through these. Okay. But this is a good tool to kind of get you and your team to understand that these cars do require a good amount of maintenance and that you guys aren't out of the park when you're doing that. Okay. Any questions or comments? Open the chat for a second. Was that helpful? Question mark.
A lively bunch.
Okay, good. Let me go ahead and open this back up. All right. So next, let's go ahead and jump into kind of what we're seeing going on with these vehicles that's going to make them more expensive and problematic and other stuff. The obvious of what's going on for right now. So when you talk about what a customer really wants nowadays, I don't think they know what they want anymore. I think they all want a cheap car and a cheap payment and just to get by and yada, 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 yada. But you have to be the one to ask them what they want with that vehicle. What I see happens a lot is somebody walks into an inexperienced manager or advisor and they say, hey, you need this stuff today. That's very difficult for a customer to take when you haven't even looked at their vehicle yet and they drove it there without a problem, right? So I see them blow up all the time and say,
Peyton, we lost your audio for a second here.
Maybe wave to him, John. Wave to him.
Hey, Peyton, can you hear us? Hey, Peyton, can you hear us?
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, how long have I been gone out?
30 seconds, something like that. Not too bad.
Okay. So on the 6 month checkup, just make sure you're taking it a little bit more serious than you used to because we're not seeing these cars as often. So a marginal battery is going to have to last 8 months a lot of times, not 3 months. So that's becoming a bigger deal nowadays. Lastly, like always, convenience, convenience, convenience. The more convenient that it is, the more likely they're going to do work with you. They're going to do it while it's there because they like working with you. A lot of times, the people that are your competitors are not convenient, and it's not getting any better. So just kind of a heads up on that. Be the convenient one. Be the one that says yes. Okay, so what's changing everything? One, CAFE. CAFE is requiring the vehicles to become lighter or more fuel efficient every year. We'll talk more on this in a minute. Warranties are coming down. We talked about this. Pretty much everybody out there is a 3645, 3650, 3660. But you got to remember, even though the powertrain 60, they don't cover oil consumption. They don't cover a lot of items. So it's getting less and less and less and less as far as these cars are covered. All the new cars are more expensive, right? Good luck finding a car that's less than $800 a month. I was at a Chevy dealer the other day, and a Buick LeSabre was $1,500 a month for a Buick LeSabre, right? People are paying more than they ever have before. The big one that's really hitting all of us now is this cheaper to maintain. All the dealerships, OEM builders are now having to fight this. They never had to do it before. You couldn't Google what is the maintenance cost in a Subaru versus a Honda Fit. Now you can, right? So now it's becoming a bigger issue. It's something that we're dealing with down the line, which I'll explain in a minute. So looking at yesterday's vehicle versus today's vehicle, the cheaper to maintain, tends to be a lot more expensive, and people keep the cars for a lot longer because they have a longer loan term. Okay. Now, we have shorter warranties than we've had in a long time. You know, in the 80s, it was like 12 months, but we were mostly 100,000-mile warranties during the housing market crash and everything because they wanted to get everybody, you know, a car, and they couldn't sell a car to save their life. So now everything's coming down, and you're starting to see a lot of the manufacturer. So Honda and Honda, your dealership, are two different businesses. Honda of USA is always going to try to sell maintenance cheaper because they want them to buy another car, right? Versus the local guy trying to get them to do the maintenance so they can keep the car. It's kind of two battling things that we deal with, okay? So you're going to hear a lot like, this Honda Civic is only $200 a year to maintain. And you're going to be like, what? Or it's the lowest cost of ownership of that car in its class, or whatever that is, right? What that is them trying to tell the customer, hey, our car's super cheap to take care of. But when they go in, they usually get something different because what they're getting from the manufacturer, there's no fluid intervals. There's a lot of things that are cut out of it because they want to keep that advertised cost low. Now, I work with every make and model at a dealership level and at an independent level, and I will tell you that every single one of them has some kind of 30, 60, 90K program. So how do you have that? And how do you have the OEM screaming at the top of their lungs, we have the cheapest car to maintain, right? The way that I look at it is that $200 a year is to get that car out of warranty. That's to get that car to go 60,000 miles, go buy another car, right? If you want to get 200,000 miles out of it, that's the plan with this vehicle, then we need to follow a different plan, a 30, 60, 90 plan that is going to get that car in those systems that long, okay? The way that they get around this is the term normal driving. To be a normal driver, you cannot frequently idle the vehicle, ever. No stop and go traffic. No extended driving in hot temperatures. No extended driving in freezing temperatures. Extended is usually an hour or more. No short trips less than 5 miles. No long distances under 50 miles per hour. No regular trips with steep hills or mountains. No trips on dusty, muddy, sanded, salted, or gravel roads. No towing or campers. And my personal favorite, no use of the factory installed roof rack. If you do any of these things at any time, you are no longer considered a normal driver, and you do not fall under the normal maintenance plans that come in your owner's manual or wherever it is that you're seeing it. Here is a screenshot of a recent one. You'll notice, no driving in heavy traffic areas over 90 degrees, no uphill, downhill, or mountain roads, no driving as a patrol car, Uber, DoorDash, taxi, commercial vehicle. The idling is what really kills those vehicles. the non just driving, right? Excessive idling at low speeds or for long distances at low speeds, right? No driving in areas for more than 10 miles that are in freezing temperatures. So you can't drive the car when it's freezing, right? There's all these things that exclude you. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that a lot of what we're seeing is happening is because of this. So when you look at the maintenance costs, look at Toyota and Honda. It's almost $1,000 difference. Imagine if someone went into the Toyota office 5 years ago and said, "Hey, we need to be below Honda. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we need to do it." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? So if we look at the costs over that period of time, one thing the manufacturers decided to do is that, you know what? I don't want to argue with you. We're just going to give you the first 3 years of maintenance for free, and then it's on you, right? The problem with this is when they did this, they started cutting everything out of the owner's manuals because now they had to pay for it. So they just said, you know what? We just won't do it. And then that way, if it goes bad, they'll just buy another car. We win either way, right? Because the OEM's only making money two ways: selling a vehicle or selling them a part. That's the only way that they make money. Every other dollar stays at the local level. So if we look at this over a 75,000-mile period, and I'm getting 3,000-mile oil changes, that would be 25 in a 5-year period. Okay. So this is what Toyota used to do. Now think of this. I have to get every one of those cars in 5 times a year, right? If I extend it, now all of a sudden I can fit more cars in because I don't have to see as many of them as often, right? Then we went to 15 oil changes over that period, 10,000, 7.5. So now Toyota only has to see them every 2 times a year versus 5, right? That saves them a lot of time and a lot of money. 15,000 miles would be 5. If we add some money to this, let's say it's $100 a service, you can see the big discrepancy in a 10,000-mile oil change interval versus a 3. This is why this is happening. And also because of it, in my opinion, the powertrains are coming down to adjust for it, because we see this every day. Sludge before 75,000 miles. Sometimes it's horrible, sometimes it's manageable, but this is something that you're going to deal with a lot because these people want to go 10,000-mile intervals and they need to do something to take care of it. So that's roughly saving that company $1,750 per car. If we do the math on Toyota sold in 23, that's roughly $4 billion that they just saved. I wish I was the CEO that thought of that, right? And when you're at Toyota, you have a lot of customers coming in and paying for 5,000-mile oil changes every other because they don't want to go 10, and they know you're not the only ones fighting this battle. I can tell you that right now. When you look in the owner's manuals, you're going to see a lot of tiered systems now. So it'll say like normal, severe, extreme, especially on pickup trucks or vans. And it's usually for the oil change interval, because what they're doing is they're advertising 10, but then if you have an issue, then they're going to say, oh, hey, you've been towing and extended idling and it's been hot and cold. You should have been doing a different interval, right? So be careful with this. This is something that you should know. A lot of them are coming down, or it'll say 10,000 miles under normal condition. You're not driving normal condition, so you shouldn't be going 10, right? We talked about the warranties coming down already enough. This is what we see a ton of, right? These are the K services or maintenance services recommended at a certain interval with price packages. One thing that you should know, these are different at every dealership in the country. I thought that they all did the same thing. They don't. It's their decision to recommend what they want to get that car to 200,000 miles in that area. It shouldn't be the same in the Adirondacks as it is in Arizona, right? It shouldn't be the same. So that's the reason. But just so you know, you should do your own maintenance markups just like everybody else does. I have some good examples for you. If we don't get to it at the end, I'll send it to John and he can get it to you guys. All right. So one big thing that really just hit us in the face, and a lot of you are going to go, oh my God, you just like changed my life. Cafe changed a lot of things that we do every day that we don't think about. Oh, Peyton, it's so stupid. Why would you put a plastic intake on a car? It's going to leak at one point. Cafe. Why would you put rotors on it that are so thin you can't resurface them? Cafe. Why would you put studs on a car so that you have to hand torque them? Because I used to put them on with a gun, never had a problem before, right? Because they're lighter now and they have less alloy. Why, or less steel? Why is every control arm alloy and not cast iron now? Why? Cafe is why. So it requires them to make the cars lighter or more fuel efficient every year. So every year your manufacturers is fighting with the parts people. Hey, make it lighter, make it lighter, make it lighter. We got to figure out how to make it lighter. Okay. That's why there's all these tiny little cars now. So the first big one that I noticed was brake calipers. We have these big old cast iron calipers. It's really good at dissipating heat because it has so much mass. And then what happened was the engineer said, hey, let's go to these alloy calipers. They're going to be a lot lighter. The downside is they can't dissipate the heat. So what happens is the brake fluid inside of this caliper cooks and degrades and oxidizes a lot faster than it would normally. And that's when they started recommending doing brake fluid changes every 2 years. If you ever asked yourself like how that just came out of nowhere, that's why. You have an aluminum caliper system that is not designed to have the dirty brake fluid push back up into it. They want you to change it. And now with collision avoidance and dynamic braking and all these other things where the car hits the brake for you, that's the other reason there's a big push for the fluid change, is because they need to keep it responding quickly. The next big one was batteries. Oh my God. So we used to have 5, 7, 10, 12-year batteries. They were great. You put one in the car, you never have a problem. Now you have 1, 2, and 3-year batteries. For you that don't know, Interstate got bought. They used to sell Deca batteries. Now they sell Exide batteries, which are the same battery as Walmart and Advanced Auto Parts and AAA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I tell you this is you're going to replace more batteries than you've ever seen. Usually they're going to be on their second or third battery by about 50,000 miles because the batteries just aren't lasting like they used to. They've replaced more batteries under warranty at the dealerships than anything else. It's pretty nuts. So just kind of a heads up, you're going to hear that, you're going to see it. All right, the next nightmare. So one of the engineers said, hey, look, if our piston rings don't squeeze out as tight, if the energy isn't forcing out as tight, it won't take as much energy to go up and down, and then we'll get better gas mileage. Great idea, horrible execution, because now it doesn't seal as tight. So when you look at these rings, you have compression, compression, and oil control. These squiggly lines right here are designed for the oil to go through that, go into the head of the piston, cool it, and go back to the oil pan. 99% of the times when these cars are consuming oil, it's because this is all gunked up with carbon and fuel deposits. And my favorite thing to when I hear is, well, these cars all consume oil. I Googled it. It didn't consume oil when it was brand new. So there's something in there that's causing that we can most likely remove and usually get back to where it needs to be. But the oil changes being longer isn't helping us, and everything else isn't helping us. Plastic drain plugs, plastic shields, stupid pop pins, all that stuff is because of Cafe. It went all the way around the room. They've changed everything. Every tire now, right? You're not going to see a 15 or a 16. It's a 19, it's a 20, 22. Less rolling resistance, better gas mileage, right? So it got all the way around the room to Fluid Dude. And Fluid Dude said, look, the only way to make it more efficient is to make the fluid thinner, so it takes less energy to push it. So the first one that we saw was engine oil and transmission fluid. So you guys have 0.8 now, right? It's a thinner oil, so it takes less energy. We have 0.12, 0.16, 0.4s coming because it's just thinner, right? The big one that you run into a lot now is transmission fluid. It'll be called low viscosity or LV or ULV, or like GM's is HP. Every vehicle being produced today, except for Dodge vans, come with an LV fluid in their system already. You're going to know when you look it up because the price is usually triple or quadruple of what the older, cheaper stuff is. The older stuff now is called high viscosity transmission fluid. This is low viscosity transmission fluid. Okay. We have a fantastic product with a fantastic price on this. If you have questions, let me know. It's one of the home runs that I always try to tell everybody about. Next big one, brake fluid. Went from .3 to .4. If you've been around for a long time, you probably remember Super .4. That is now called .4 LV or low viscosity. Most Euros 2012 or newer, American 2018 and newer, are requiring an LV brake fluid because of the collision avoidance stuff. Okay. So this isn't going away. The 5.1 will cover everything backwards compatible, including electric cars. We don't need to go into that today, but it is a little bit different. Gear oil is your next big one. So we used to have these big old cast iron differentials that could dissipate heat really well, and we put 3 or 4 quarts of fluid in them. Now we have these tiny little things that we put 1 quart of fluid in, and we're lucky to get a service interval on it, right? Because most of these systems now have less fluid and no interval. Same amount of heat, same amount of pressure, same amount of torque, right? But but a lot more, excuse me, but no interval to get it done. What we see a lot is the dealers will recommend it after they know there's a problem, right? Oh, we've been doing a lot of differentials on these Mazdas. Okay, we're going to start recommending it to every customer that comes in. What I hate is that they don't get a letter saying, hey, we know there's been a problem. We should really recommend servicing it. That's what I would do, right? Because these customers just don't know any better. Oh, and my owner's manual doesn't say. That's why you have to be the educator. Now, the whole new world that we are going to run into, the future will be an 80% hybrid electric stop start market, meaning that they're not going to be fully electric, but they will be electric assisted in some way. So you can still drive it as a gas car, you can drive it as an electric car. You're seeing it already. They're already on the road now. Okay. Right now, the CAFE law is 34 to 38 miles per gallon. In 10 years, we're looking at 54 to 58. Okay. One of the way that they're getting there is that the car can shut off. I know every customer that you have come in hates the stop start. I hate it too. It's annoying, but it's there because of CAFE to get these emission standards down. The downside of this is that when a car doesn't run all the time, it gets very dirty very, very quickly. And you're going to start seeing it on everything. Even Jeeps are 4xe. It's an electric assisted gas motor that can do both. The problem that we're seeing is that the rings get really dirty really quick because they're not driving them and the engine doesn't run all the time. And then on top of that, some of your hybrid customers like to have an attitude about not doing maintenance because they believe they know more than you. And I know everybody in here has one of those customers, right? But I will tell you that if you do one of these services on one of those cars, they will be blown away by how much better it runs. Now, 20 years ago, we would tune up a car and a customer would stop by and, hey, John, it seems to start up so much better. Thank you, or you do a fuel service or whatever. You're going to hear that now, but they're not talking about that. Have you ever been in someone's car and you drive it and it starts at a stoplight and it almost throws you into the seat? It's because these systems start with the fuel injectors now, not the starters. But because of that, when they're dirty, they lurch and they hesitate. So if you're feeling that, there's ways to take care of those issues. But when you do the service, the customer is going to tell you, "Hey, John, it seems like it starts up better." Okay, and we'll go over a couple of those things if we have time. All right. This is a big misconception what oil actually is. So all the oil that you are going to touch in your shop is going to come in to them at crude form. There is no refinery in Iraq pumping out quarts of royal purple, right? And then shipping them over here. What happens is it's all going to come to either Texas or Louisiana, most likely, and it's going to put into a distilling tower. What they're going to do is they're going to heat it up. And the thin stuff's going to go to the top, and the thick stuff's going to go to the bottom. Okay. It's all made from the same base. So what I see a lot of is we are going to take this crude and make it into a million things. When I go around and do my job, I don't care where they're buying the oil or the fuel from, because when it's all coming from the same base, they're all going to have the same carbon related problems. Whether it's a weed whacker or a boat or we get calls for locomotives and school buses. I mean, you name it, same diesel fuel, same oils, it's going to have the same deposit issues because it's all coming from the same base. Okay. Once we get that base, we are a blender. That's what you call a cool oil guy, is he's a blender. They blend the oil into whatever they want. So if we put this base into a car, it wouldn't go 1,000 miles without locking up. All of this is what goes into it, called the additive pack, that will wear so the oil doesn't wear. If you ever see oil go drastically bad pretty quick, it's because the additive pack has finally just gone to zero, and now the oil will wear very, very fast. So once we get that base, we're going to formulate it into whatever we want. Transmission fluid is a petroleum oil, just like engine oil. It's got a few things that are different in it, but again, it's still a petroleum oil that's going to break down over heat and pressure. Okay. Now, when we put that in a car, let's say engine oil, for example, and we add heat, Engine oil is designed to do two big things. One, suspend those deposits in the oil so that it can take it to the filter, and when we go to change the oil, it comes out with the system. As we add heat, as we add more deposits, right, it's going to build up and get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and eventually turn into oil sludge. I'm sure a lot of us have seen oil jello before. It's very simple. There's only three things that you can do to prevent this. One, change the oil more often, right? But good luck getting that 10,000-mile customer to go back, right? Two, add more oil to the system. So when we extended them, a couple of your manufacturers changed oil pans and they went to a bigger oil pan. They had more oil, so you could go longer. That's a smart way to do it, right? There's some diesel trucks you'll see have catch cans that hold extra oil. The third thing that you can do is add more additive to that oil. When you talk about MOA, there's nothing in it that's not already in engine oil. It's just more of it so that we can boost it and help it sell, help it go down the road. Okay. I want to go over two deposit things real quick. So we are seeing a lot of issues with oil consumption. I know a lot of people don't check the oil like we used to. We didn't need to. We never had a car like that before. But GDIs, because of low tension piston rings and turbochargers and everything else, they get dirtier a lot faster. So this is a detergent that would go in. You would run it at 1200 RPMs with the engine, and then you're going to drain the oil out. Okay. Hey, Peyton, why does this matter? What is this actually doing? If you do it the way that it's supposed to, what it's going to do is it's going to dissolve the stuff. So if you take a shirt that's dirty and you throw it in the washer machine and you add soap, the soap is going to break the stuff up, suspend it in a liquid. We change the liquid out, the stuff goes with it, right? So on a piston or on an oil pan, you can see the before and after. When we were talking about the oil evaporating, this sticky stuff that you see on the left side here, that is really an issue. Oops, sorry. That is what's going to get reburned through the engine and go on top of the piston and the spark plugs and all the other stuff. That's why the evaporation of the oil matters, okay? Here is a picture before and after. You can see the left slide, it's all sludged up. On the right side, we cleaned all this stuff out. We are able to dissolve this stuff. Now, we used to use this more as a maintenance item. Now we're seeing a lot of sludge, a lot of issues. A simple cleaning is not really what you need for that, okay? This is why dynamic was invented. Volkswagen and Audi asked us to build this for their oil consumption recall. So what you do is if a car has bad carbon packing, sludge, or if it's actively smoking, this is a perfect case for this. So what you do is you pour the first jug is 6 quarts to the right capacity in the car as the engine oil. You're going to run it at 3,000 RPMs for 45 minutes with a new filter. Then you're going to drain it, rinse oil, 3,000 RPMs for 20 minutes with a new filter. Here is, I think this is a C-Class Mercedes. You can see all the chunks and all the crud and everything in there. And then there's the after. And yes, it is that impressive when you see it. It will dissolve all that stuff out through heat and agitation so that we can get it out safely. Okay. Here's some other pictures. We sell thousands. I think we sell 120 of these a month right now, just in Maryland and Virginia. So you can imagine how many that is in the country. All right. Want to do a couple more things and then we'll go back to John. The whole fuel issue, the whole GDI thing. What are we talking about, right? So the piston ring issue is part of the problem. The other part is where the fuel is going in. So with our older system, port fuel, we would spray fuel directly on the valve, help keep it clean. Now with GDI, or gas direct injected, the injector is going to spray directly in the cylinder. Because of that, now the valve's not getting cleaned automatically. The advantage, besides horsepower, is that we can start the car with the injector. So again, instead of the starter turning the engine, the computer knows which spark and which injector to fire on which cylinder, and it starts it that way. So if you're in a car and it's jerky, it's usually because the injectors are dirty, and that's what gives you that hesitation when you try to get it going again. Because of this becoming a big problem, most of your manufacturers are now going to dual injection. So we have an injector that sprays on the valve, one that goes in the cylinder. They don't both spray at the same time, but so far we've got probably 10 to 12 vehicles on the road right now with this. Toyota Tundra, there's an Audi, there's a Ford, there's a bunch of them out there. The Ford Transits are like this. So what do you need to know? The older type, we used to do every 30,000 miles, and we could get it from dirty to spotless, no problem, have a nice day. The reason for that is that was mostly fuel deposits. Now we're dealing with fuel and oil deposits. They're much harder to remove. They build up a lot faster. And you got to remember, I have to dissolve that enough that it can safely go out the exhaust and no problem, right? We're not going to just knock it off and throw it in the trash can. So the picture where that says before was a car with 60,000 miles on it that's never been done. And I can tell you right now, that car probably had some serious oil consumption issues. On the right side, you can see that it's not perfect. And what I want you to realize is that these newer cars are getting a lot dirtier, a lot faster than they used to. And sometimes just doing one service at 60K isn't going to be enough to get it back to 100%. So I just like to always show that. All right, couple service notes. So before the car's dropped off, obviously you give them a warm greeting. What can I do for you today? What's the plan with this vehicle? Great questions. You got to remember that people don't want to spend money with you, right? It's always going to be a fight, right? In a sense, because it's an unexpected expense. Do your best to be nice with them and try to help them. They're in a world that they don't know what's going on either. So I have found that when you ask them what the plan for the car is, you're going to get one of three questions or answers. I'm going to keep it till the wheels fall off. 99 times out of 100, that's what they're going to tell you. Every once in a while, like, oh, I'm going to trade it in, or it's my brother's car, or whatever. And we all know that's a stalling tactic. It's a bunch of BS, right? The third one is always some kind of determinant, right? Like I'm going to retire, or my daughter's going to graduate from college, and then at that point, we're going to get a new car, okay? At this point, I'm still going to tell my staff to do the exact same thing, but the way that I'm going to talk to them about it is going to be different. I still need a proper inspection either way, right? Even if it's a trade-in car, he can't know what it's going to cost to buy that car if he doesn't know what it costs to fix the one that he needs to get rid of, right? He can't make that decision on a Sunday night when you're closed, okay? So you still got to look over that car. After we get the keys, right? Now that we have collected this information, we've gone through everything, we can base our answers on what they asked us about and talked to us about. Hey, look, I know you told me that you're going to get rid of the car when Ashley graduated, but I wanted to let you know what it's going to need if you decide to keep it. I've sold so many big tickets that way. And it took 3 months or 6 months. And they're like, I looked at a new car and you're right. We like this thing. You think we can get 4 more years out of it? I'm like, yeah, I think so. Okay, let's do it. The big thing here is that when somebody challenges you, now you can go right back to them and say, hey, look, John, you told me that you wanted to keep this car till the wheels fall off. Is that still the case? That's why I'm recommending this maintenance today, right? Because you told me that you wanted to take care of this car. Now it's not me trying to push it on you. Now it's me trying to take care of what you told me you wanted out of that vehicle. You get it all the time with a construction guy. Do I really need that? Well, hey, what do you want out of this truck? Do you want it to break down in a year and buy another one? Well, no, not really. Well, then we got to start doing something, but you can't just drive it and have it, last forever. Rebuttals. Oh, wow, that's a lot of money. I used to have this guy that every time someone would give him a rebuttal, he would drop the price. It didn't matter what the rebuttal was. Most of the time, it is not about price. They are asking you to help them. What they're really saying here is, I need you to just kind of explain this to me again. Can you just walk this, it's $3,000. Can you, let's just talk through it again, right? But don't take that as I need to back down or change anything, because you don't. I can't do all this right now. What they're really saying is, hey, help me prioritize. Well, hey, look, I understand that. Do you want to break it up over 2 visits, or like, can we hold off on one thing and you do it in a month or whatever, right? I can't afford this right now. We have financing. I used to hate bringing up financing because I thought it made me feel bad about like telling someone they couldn't afford it, But then I realized your finance options are a lot better than people putting it on a credit card, right? And people in this area cannot live without a car. So they're going to get it fixed somewhere. It's just who's going to make it easy for them to get it fixed. Is this hunk of junk worth keeping? Again, help me make a smart decision is all they're saying. They don't mind spending $3,000 with you, but they're saying, just make sure this is a smart decision for me because I trust you, but I want to make sure we're not making a dumb decision because we can't go backwards, right? You can't just give me a refund. I need to use the car tomorrow. They need convenience. Can I get you a ride? Can I get you a loaner? Doesn't mean drop the price, right? What can I hold off on? Help me prioritize, right? Oh, I have an aftermarket warranty. Oh, we'll talk about this one later. That's a long conversation. Okay. It was just at another shop and they said everything was fine, right? This happens a lot. Or it was at the dealer. They said everything's fine. That's why we have our inspections. That's why we have our tests. Let me go over with what we did, and then you can try to call them and ask them what they did, right? They're asking you to step up and help them, okay? The last thing I want to go over is empathy. This is something that I think a lot of our industry has forgotten about because we get so busy with people on the phone and we get frustrated. But if Sally came in and I tried to sell her a fuel service and it wasn't in her owner's manual, it would make complete logical sense for her to say, "Hey, it's not in there," right? That's not a dumb thing. So we have to empathize and say, "Look, I understand. Oh wow, Peyton, that's really expensive. Hey, look, I understand. I just had to fix my car and it put $2,000. I don't want to ever do it again." Empathize with them. Be their side partner, not the person that's challenging them front to back. Okay. Next, work on educating and then eventually ask for the sale. But I will tell you in my experience that the more empathy that you use, the better chance there is for them to tell you what's really going on with the car. And then they're going to listen to you when you try to help them keep that car. But to have that relationship, you've got to have the time to build it from empathy. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I know that John has a link for you to put in the chat. If you want to go ahead and do that, John, let's go and open up to any questions. And then just to be clear, the link in the chat is if you want John to follow up with you about the slides and all that stuff. If you don't, we
Yeah, I
don't
was
want to
going to
bug you,
ask if we
obviously.
could get the
Go ahead.
slides.
Yeah. Yeah, I can send John the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to, even if you want to just send a note in the chat here or fill out that jot form I just dropped, then I will make sure I can get that information over to you.
Okay. Hope that takes me down there.